You want to do the honors?
Welcome, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, or evening. It is August 31st. My video is not working. It's the Flux Open Developer Meeting, and we're going to get started. If you have agenda items, please put them on the agenda. I will post a link to the agenda in the chat. We do not have very many items on the agenda right now, so
I'll add some. 1 second. Yeah, I've added 3 things. Let me change the order a little bit. Are we ready to start?
I think so.
Okay.
Okay, so first, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, let's start with the GA focus.
Okay, I'll pull up the board and share my screen.
Okay.
So I think we usually start over here with since the last dev meeting. I haven't been involved in any of these changes. Is there anyone who'd like to talk about them?
Yes, I can talk a little bit about them. So we have updated the roadmap. As we discussed on the last meeting, we have cross-checked some long-standing issues like having a troubleshooting guide, having dedicated guides for cloud providers. We managed to get those sorted and they are published on the Flux website. And we also added more things to the roadmap, like refactoring Git and adding more end-to-end tests and unit tests for it. So we can have a single Git implementation across all controllers and CLI. That's the end goal. But for the for GA, we are looking at having a unified approach to Git only for controllers. We have decided not to include the refactoring of the CLI using the Git packages, but we strive to, come up with a solution to have the CLI compatible with Git version 2 protocol, and find out how can we compile the CLI with CGO and libgit2 C packages in order to work with Azure DevOps and other Git providers which require Git version 2 protocol, which is only implemented by the C packages. So that's something that we have decided. And those are the main changes to the roadmap.
Okay, and we have these other issues. Just going to move them over to the done unless there's someone who wants to talk about them, or
Yeah, maybe Max can talk about the timeout behavior, why we closed that issue.
Max.
Is that any better?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can hear you now.
Perfect. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so we held a vote today on the timeout behavior because it felt like we were pretty much stuck on a decision. So we took a decision today. The vote was supposed to last for 2 weeks. However, surprisingly, everyone except one person was able to cast their votes. And we took the decision to stick with the current behavior, which is basically reusing the timeout for the different operations in separation. So if you specify a timeout on a Git repository, then of like 60 seconds, then this timeout will be used for a Git clone operation, and then for any potential subsequent operations as well, which may lead to a reconciliation that is like twice that size. Yeah, that's how it currently is, and it'll stay like that for the time being.
Yes, and this
Voting
behavior.
so quickly.
I want to mention
Thanks
that
for voting so quickly.
can you hear me? So the timeout behavior is inconsistent, let's say, across controllers. Some controllers propagate the timeout from one operation to another. I think a good example here is the bucket controller. But most of the controllers do use the timeout for the various operations that they are doing. I can say, for example, for customized controller, we have 3 major operations. One operation is the server side dry run apply, and we use the timeout for that. Then we do the apply, we reuse the timeout, so we don't, we initiate a new context for the timeout. And finally, we health check where people can specify a different timeout for that health check. So depending on how it's configured. So even if you say timeout, I don't know, 30 seconds, a full customization reconciliation can take 1.5 minutes, and it will not time out. So I don't think the behavior is bad. What I think is that users may be surprised by this behavior. So I think we should try to document this for every single custom resource definition, because I think it's specific to a particular custom resource definition, right? And there where we document the timeout field and the interval field, we should say more about it, and so people don't get surprised. Yeah, so I don't know, Kingdom, maybe you can write down in the meeting note as a takeaway to improve the documentation around this, because that issue is closed.
Okay. And we had this one other, well, we bumped the package Git to 0.6.0. I'm not sure if that's significant to anyone.
So Sanskar has finished the Git consolidation into the Flux Dev package repo, and we've made a release of it. And now we want to use it in source controller. So we run all the unit tests and end-to-end tests to make sure we didn't break anything during the refactoring. So this is just an intermediary step. We have some, let's say, I don't know, couple of weeks before we can be confident and switch everything to Git. But yeah, making sure we didn't break anything, it's an important first step, and that's what that release does. Allows us to use the new package and replace all the code in source controller, and hopefully soon in image automation controller, and test everything.
Excellent. And then I'll just highlight that we've updated the Azure storage docs. It looks like we've added a few scenarios, or one scenario and another scenario yet to come. All right, so shall we move on to the next question? I see the Flux 0.33 release came out.
Yes, we made a release 2 days ago. No breaking changes in this release. We have added some optional fields to custom resources. One feature that we shipped in 0.33 is the possibility of configuring Flux to pull Helm charts for container registries without static authentication. And this works for the 3 cloud vendors that we support in Flux, which is Azure, AWS, and Google Cloud. What this means is that if you've created a cluster, let's say on EKS, and the node where Flux is running has read-only access to ECR, you don't have to configure anything to pull your Helm charts from there. The only thing you have to tell Flux is using the provider field in the Helm repository, you have to tell Flux which provider to use. Is it AWS, Azure, or GCP? If you run clusters on these 3 clouds, but the nodes, the Kubernetes nodes, don't have access to your container registries, then you can use IAM role bindings and grant Flux source controller service account read-only access to the container registry. So for most people, I don't know, if you're using Terraform or EKS Cattle, or I don't know, the gcloud command line and so on, when you create a cluster, that cluster has access to the container registry. But maybe you store your Helm charts in a different container registry than the one that's in the same region as the cluster. There are various setups here. So in those cases, you need to do you need to create an IAM role, and you need to bind the service account to that IAM role. And we have extensive documentation on how to do that. What are you searching for?
Still sharing my screen, aren't I? I was looking for a piece of code that I had a question about. Sorry, don't mean to distract you.
Okay. Another thing that we've shipped in 0.33 is the possibility to select a particular layer in the OCI artifact that gets pulled by Flux, and this is about OCI repositories. I envision in the future there will be tools out there that will bundle a container image with this configuration in the same OCI artifact. And when such a tool will exist, Flux will work out of the box with it, because then you can tell Flux, hey, don't take the first layer from the artifact, look up a particular media type. I don't know. What you decide what the media type should be, and Flux will only look for Kubernetes manifests in there. And yes, we have made small improvements to the Flux CLI around working with OCI artifacts. Now, for example, when you do a Flux push, by default, Flux will not bundle inside the artifacts the Git metadata, for example, the .git directory, which can be huge. And we also allow you to exclude various paths or file extensions and so on when you do the build process. So in a way, it works like Docker ignore or Git ignore. It uses the same format. You can give these ignore expressions to a flag when you do Flux push. And another improvement was to Flux list artifacts, where Flux prints the artifacts that you have pushed with it, and it shows you there the digest, the tags, and also the upstream metadata, like from which repository was this artifact built, and at which commit SHA was it. Now, the issue is that if you do continuous delivery, you may end up with tons of artifacts. And we now allow you to filter the list result based on a semver expression, if you use semver for tagging, or based on regex expressions if you use some other standard, like some prefix, which can be a branch, and then the commit SHA you can filter and see the artifacts produced from a Git branch. And yes, finally, we have upgraded Flux to Kubernetes 1.25. So all the packages, client Go, and everything else has been updated. And we also updated our Helm SDK to the latest Helm version that fixes CV in Helm. And that's about it for 0.33. Next, yeah.
Just to go back to the question I had about the code, someone asked if there was a good example of a server-side dry run the other day, and so I went looking for it in the code. And I didn't find it in customized controller. Would I find it in the package, or?
Yes, we have a package called SSA, which is short from server-side apply. That is the package that we use in both customized control and the Flux CLI for everything around reconciling objects. It's not only about applying, it's also about validation, encryption, decryption, health checking, and so on. So that's the package.
Great. Now I can share that example. Thank you. The next item was cosine status update.
No, the next item is Kubernetes logging alignment.
You're right. Sorry.
So we've been using controller runtime as the SDK on which we've built all the Flux controllers. And controller runtime comes with logger. And couple of weeks or months ago, Kubernetes released a new logging structure. So Kubernetes now can be switched, all the Kubernetes native controllers, to log in JSON format. We've been doing that with Flux from the beginning. And the new Kubernetes logging format is quite different from what Flux currently does. So we've been postponing this for a while now. There were some bugs in the new logging implementation in control runtime that were fixed. So we plan in Flux 0.34 to change how logging is structured. And this is a breaking change if you, for example, use Logstash or I don't know, CloudWatch or whatever, and you look at the fields of the Flux logs. For example, if you filter logs based on custom resource kind. Let's say you want to see all the logs of a Git repository. Those filters will break on 0.34 because the name of the field changed. This decision was taken upstream. We cannot fight it. We'll embrace it. So starting with next version, you'll have to fine-tune your logging queries and any kind of aggregation you are doing with it. So that was the announcement. We are going to break everyone's logging filters.
Sounds unavoidable, but regrettable.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we can move on to the next, unless there's any questions. Cosine status update.
Yeah, can you open the pull request for cosine?
Yeah. It's in the customized controller or source controller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Second one.
Okay.
Okay, so developer guy Batuhan, which is I hope I said your name correctly. Yeah, he's here in the meeting. He is very shy. He doesn't want to talk, but he is listening. So we to give some idea about what's going on. We have specified in the OCI repository RFC that we want to verify artifacts from that Flux pulls from container registries with cosine. So the workflow will be you do a Flux push of your manifest to the container registry, then you use the cosine CLI to sign that particular artifact. Right, so this happens on the CI side. On the CD side, where Flux is on the cluster, you'll configure Flux to pull the latest artifact from the registry, and then you'll give Flux either your public key, so it can verify that okay, the artifact is produced by an authorized entity, or you can tell Flux to verify the artifact using a cosine keyless procedure. What happens on the CI side when you use keyless, instead of giving it a private key to sign the artifact, you'll use OEDC, for example, the GitHub identity or Google identity or any other identity provider. and you sign the CI job, sign the artifacts with that particular identity. Then Flux will call out to record, which is the database where cosign persists, the ledger where cosign persists these signatures, and it will verify that the artifact is valid according to that public ledger. And this is what the pull request implements right now. So verifying artifacts with the public key or verifying with keyless. And there was a lot of activity on this pull request. I know we had like 70 comments. And we are currently in a position where we have a lot of ideas of how this has to be implemented. I'm not sure how to go forward. What's the plan for getting this into shape? But I think there are a couple of requirements for this to be shipped. One is we need to have unit tests and verify that, yes, we can use a public key and it Flux succeeds the reconciliation. If you give it the wrong public key, Flux will reject the artifact. But I've added a comment there around what tests I should think are the minimum requirement. As for end-to-end tests in the original issue, I have linked there to two artifacts, two OCI repositories that I've created for end-to-end tests. One is with keyless and GitHub, and one is with my public key. And I'm not sure how to go forward with this. Hide, do you have any requirements? What other things must happen here besides the small list I made of unit tests?
Not on the spot right now, no, but I can look into it.
Okay. Batuhan, do you need any help? Can we help you in any way with this? Should we, I don't know, assign someone from the core maintainers to this pull request? Or how do you want to proceed? Or you want to take it on your own?
He says he will ask for help when he needs it.
Okay. Okay, so we will keep commenting on it and hopefully we'll get to working version soon enough. Currently the pull request, I tried to build it and it fails. So yeah, let me know if you need any help with setting up your dev machine for this.
Okay.
And that's it from me.
Moving on then. We have a standing agenda item for any PRs requiring reviews. And there are none listed here, but if you have one, feel free to post it here and we can talk about it. I'll go on to my update. We've released a new version of Flux v1, 1.25.4, that includes some minor upgrades and deprecation notices. if they're placed prominently, so you can't miss them when you install. The aim is to ensure that no one starts with Flux v1 at this point, a little bit more forcefully than before. And we've also removed the telemetry code, so there's no dial home sending your kernel version to Weaveworks anymore in accordance with the CNCF policies. We will do the same for Helm Operator next. And as far as the latest release of Kubernetes, I wanted to address that I believe that we do not currently support that, but we will likely implement the required upgrades soon. However, if you are depending on that, if you're in the awkward position of upgrading to the latest Kubernetes release and you're still on Flux v1, I don't know how to feel about that, but please upgrade. That's it for me.
Yeah, so basically after this release, we'll have no clue if someone starts with Flux v1 or what's the usage of Flux v1, which is okay. We have no clue with around what's happening with Flux version 2. We have no telemetry, so yeah. That's
I'm
it.
honestly not sure how to retrieve the telemetry anyway, so I won't miss it. But for the user impact, the impact is that you will no longer be notified about new versions of Flux v1. The message now tells you it's time to upgrade to Flux v2, no matter what version you're running, if you run this version or newer. So.
And also, if you do a Helm upgrade with the Helm CLI, you'll get a warning in the output, right?
Yes.
Telling you to move to version 2. Okay, that's cool.
Yep, and that's it for me.
I have a question for Max. I know we wanted to support Helm repositories over HTTP, non-TLS connections.
Yes.
And I've been following the breadcrumbs of issues in the Helm repo, and I ended up on a pull request for 1 year ago, more than 1 year ago, that seems very stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have a PR up in source controller that is dependent on some Helm changes. I came up with a PR myself, trying to get it in quicker than the person that tried that before me. However, it looks like there's at least 1 or 2 other PRs doing very similar things. And I took that concern to the Helm meeting a couple of weeks ago, and was basically asked to help get that PR over the line, basically taking ownership of that PR because the person initially creating it wasn't responding anymore. In the meantime, 1 or 2 other PRs got created, also got approved, but not merged yet. And I would like to take this one more time to the Helm meeting, because it's like these PRs keep being created because people obviously need that feature, but none of those get merged. And that's a real concern for anyone using Helm that way. So anything I can do is take it to the Helm maintainers and ask for help getting this in as soon as possible.
Do you know what's the status with Helm OCI? Can we connect to a container registry, which is, let's say, inside the cluster next to Flux? So there is no MTLS, no nothing, no username, no password. It's something which is, let's say, protected with network policies, and you want to use that as, the Flux storage. for charts?
Without TLS?
Yes.
I am pretty sure that even that wouldn't work. I think like I'm trying to recall the code that I saw in the Docker client code. And I think the only exception it makes is localhost. But it might also make exceptions for any IP address on the same network, though.
Well, I think from the code I have reviewed, because there was someone from VMware that was asking about that. And yes, the only insecure network accepted is localhost.
Yeah, okay. So it
Well,
wouldn't even work inside the cluster.
So I have done this last night for OCI repository. Here is the pull request. So the use case I was trying to. So what I was trying to do is create my own dev environment with Kubernetes kind and Docker registry, and there is documentation in Kubernetes kind docs on how to set up a container registry that serves the cluster. And yeah, everything worked. Kubelet could pull from from this container registry. I could push from my machine to it. Everything was fine. Flux wasn't able to pull any artifacts from it. So as a result of this, I have added a new optional field to the OCI repository, which is the same as for buckets, with the same goal. Like for buckets, you can run a Minio cluster next to Flux. So you'll set unsecured true and you'll let Flux connect to this dedicated Minio instance. And now people can replace the Minio instance with Docker Registry version 2, and it should work the same. I'm currently switching my dev environment from using Minio to Docker Registry. But this will not work for Helm charts, right? If I push a Helm chart with Helm to localhost, that will work, but I cannot pull it from source control because ORAS or whatever ORAS, I'm guessing, is
Actually, it's actually a little deeper in the stack. So yeah, ORAS isn't passing the insecure. You have to pass the insecure flag to ORAS so that it passes that to the Docker runtime, like the library.
Mhm.
And otherwise, it would only accept localhost as an insecure registry. So it's a little deeper in the stack, but yeah, we need to start passing this to ORAS. And that's the one thing that's missing from the Helm SDK, right?
So
Only that
ORAS
single.
has the insecure flag.
Yes,
Okay.
it supports it. Yes.
So it's only
the
about.
Helm SDK.
Oh, okay.
Exactly.
But on Helm
And then,
side,
yeah, the Helm people. I'm sorry. I'm gonna just finish this one. So the Helm people weren't very happy with only supporting it for the Helm SDK, as I did in the PR, because they also want to support it in the CLI from the beginning. So it sounded like, and it was pretty explicit, like I think Matt was pretty explicit that he wouldn't like to merge a PR that only fixes it for the Helm SDK, but he wants it to have it like end-to-end in the CLI and the SDK. And that makes it a little more complicated because then you touch on things like what is the flag supposed to be called, and there are other flags that are called insecure and they do different things, and it's kind of a mess actually. So then you end up trying to converge all these different flags into one to not have an inconsistent user experience in the Helm, which we as Flux don't really care about. But to get the PR merge, you have to care about the CLI, the Helm CLI too, which is a little unfortunate, but I kind of understand that concern from the Helm people. That makes it more complicated. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right. Yeah, so I can push to to my local registry because there is a special case for localhost. It's probably an if there. If localhost, do whatever.
Yes, there's like a list of accepted exceptions.
Okay. Yeah, that's. Yeah, so Helm can push to an unsecure registry with no flag, but we have to add the flag just for the sake of having a flag, so we can get the change in the SDK. Right.
Basically, yes.
Okay. Thank you for the details. So it looks like it will take us some time to get this on pair with OCI repository. So the new source controller release will have this, but only for OCI repos, no Helm repos. And when we get it in Helm, that's when we release it. Great, thank you very much, Max, for explaining.
Sure thing.
So that takes us to the end of our agenda, unless anyone has anything else for today.
No. Just an announcement around logging. We've decided to bump all the minor versions of all controllers. So when we are going to ship the breaking changes in the logging format, we are going to do it in Flux 0.34, probably, or 35 or whatever. So it will be a minor version bump, and also all the controllers will be bumped to their next minor versions, and we'll write some documentation, tell people what they have to change in their logging parsers to adapt to the new changes.
Okay,
About it.
and on that note, I guess we can close the meeting a couple minutes early.
Yep.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.